This is my summary of the study we were assigned on water conservation behaviors. This is the paper I'll be summarizing. I highly recommend that you check it out yourself because it has a lot of interesting data on it. The research question of the paper is, how does observed water scarcity affect human behaviors relating to water scarcity? This translates to, when a population recognizes they are in a drought, how do their behaviors of water conservation change? And this paper is special because it tries filling the attitude behavior gap. The attitude behavior gap is essentially how someone feels about water scarcity and how that feeling affects their behavioral changes to adapt to the water scarcity. The argument of the paper is that it is important to understand the behaviors of a population under water stress. Knowing which populations react in which ways given water stress and their own communal circumstances, policies can be implemented for more efficient conservation efforts given the area. So factors like income, home ownership, age, politics, race all play important roles in how a population reacts to water stress. And knowing how each one of these factors affects a population's behaviors allows a government, for example, to implement policies that will more efficiently affect their own population to get the end result of better water management. Population that this study looks at is taken from a non-random sample meant to represent the greater U.S. population. The sample collection method was an online survey. And a quote talking about the sampling method was, "Thus, while the sample is not random, it is designed to be representative of the larger U.S. population, and post-stratification survey weights were included in the analysis to ensure U.S. population representation." So although this isn't a random sample, which a lot of people would assume it would be, it is designed to be representative of the whole U.S. So it's not random. It was drawn out and planned, but as a result, it should show different areas of the U.S. much better than a random sample would. And all selected participants were given all means needed to fill out the survey as to not de-randomize the sample. So people who don't have computers, for example, were given computers to do the survey. That way, no one from like lower income classes would be excluded from the survey. It was just a measure to make things, more representative of everybody in the country. The papers this one builds off of can be summarized into two groupings, the demographic grouping and environmental ones. The environmental grouping is very underpopulated, to say the least, which is why this paper really focuses on environmental factors. But people are most responsive to act regarding in their local environment. This goes off of the fact that people get overwhelmed, in a sense, to large climate issues or environmental issues like global warming. People feel like they are disconnected from the issue and can't really help it, and as a result, that affects their behavior to where they don't really help fight it at all. But it has been observed from previous papers that people who see environmental issues in their communities, so communal-sized problems, not global problems, they are very responsive to them. And populations that witness water signs of drought in their area are more likely to conserve water. Studies have failed to study this effect on a national level and have instead focused on specific counties. So, building off the last thing I said, given a drought in a small area, like a county or something, if someone in that county witnesses this, they're much more likely to be responsive to it compared to larger environmental issues. And studies have studied this, but not on a national level like this study we are reading now. They've really only focused on specific counties. And there's the demographic grouping. So different demographic factors have shown different rates of correlation with water conservation efforts. Age, from previous papers, shows it has a positive correlation. So older people are more likely to conserve water when they're supposed to. People who are of higher education report higher levels of self-reported conservation, but they don't actually show any more conservation, or at least that's what previous papers have found. They just say they conserve more water, but never actually do. Household size is, of course, positively correlated with water use, but it can conserve more water as well when you look at it from a per capita standpoint. Gender and race has had mixed results. There's no real correlation related to that until this paper. And then political affiliation has a positive correlation as well. So liberals are more likely to conserve water. So given all the previously known information from previous studies, the methods on our paper starts with the data collection. They have a self-reported nationally representative survey, as mentioned earlier. They use the U.S. Drought Monitor to look at weather models, pretty much, to see who's actually in a drought, what kind of precipitation different areas get. And then they also use the Wilmot-Fedima Water Scarcity Index, and this is essentially self-reported feelings of being in a drought. So an individual's idea of what kind of drought they're in. And there's dependent variables, explanatory variables, and control variables in this study. The dependent variables are self-reported for their data. There's non-financial behaviors, low-cost behaviors, and high-cost behaviors. These are all behaviors related to water conservation. So non-financial behavior would be like taking a smaller shower, like a shower that takes less water. So you're only in it for 5 minutes instead of 20. Now that doesn't cost any extra money, so everyone can do it. And then on the other end, you have high-cost behaviors, things like getting a new dishwasher that uses half the water. These are all self-reported, so they didn't actually check people's households or anything. It's just what the people with the survey said. There's explanatory variables. These are precipitation data and the index we talked about earlier. These are used to measure counties' water scarcity, both actual water scarcity and self-reported water scarcity. And there's control variables. These are the demographic ones like gender, political affiliation, race, education, household size, home ownership, and then like rural versus metropolitan areas. So again, the methods, we're using these already existing data, like the weather, and also using the self-reported stuff that we talked about earlier. So after collecting all the data and then statistically analyzing it, the paper talks about its findings, which I summarized here. This paper found that age has a 1.03 increase per year in chances to conserve water. So someone who's 24 versus 25, for example, has a 1.03 times percent more chance of conserving water. That's a tiny amount, but someone who's 18 versus 65, that's a very large amount. You just have to calculate it by multiplying the age minus 18, because they only use data from people 18 and above, times 1.03, and you'll find out the chances from there. They also found that liberals are more likely to conserve water, which agrees with previous studies. That white non-Hispanics are 1.4 times more likely to conserve water. Additional education equals a 1.19% higher chance to conserve water. They did not break this down into like what level of education, like doctorate degree versus bachelor's degree. It's pretty much if you have education past high school, even just like trade schools, you're more likely to. So it's all grouped together. People who receive the water bill are 1.95% higher likely to conserve water. So people who pay for their water are more likely to conserve water, obviously, because they don't want to pay more. And then 1.32% higher likelihood to conserve water based on self-reported concern, and 1.41% higher chance to conserve water based off self-reported water importance. What that means is people who think the environment is important are more likely to conserve water by 1.32. And if you think water issues are also a problem, so it's kind of like the same question but more specific to water, you're 1.41 more likely to. So the contribution of this paper, there were quite a few. One is the levels of concern for the environment is one of the strongest factors for prediction of water conservation. So pretty much the people who are going to conserve the most water are the people who actually care. People who care about the water issues, people who care about the environment, they're most likely to do this. It also finds that people that pay for water conserve water. This goes along with caring about the environment, kind of, although they don't necessarily care about the environment. They care about a policy related to the environment. So, although you may not care about the environment, you're more likely to conserve water if you pay for it based off of a policy that is made to conserve water for the environment. So it's kind of a way of making people who don't care. Also, knowledge and experience of drought results in water conservation. Water efficient appliances require this factor, plus economic factors. So pretty much, if you've experienced a drought and you're knowledgeable that you're in a drought currently, that's a large factor for people to conserve water. And then I go into water efficient appliances require this factor. So any effort to conserve water requires that people know of the drought and care about the drought. But the higher cost methods like getting appliances need that factor as well as economic factors. So poor people, no matter how much they care, can't get these better appliances. So it's not necessarily that poor people don't care about the environment and don't want to conserve water. This paper found that they equally do it. They just can't do the higher end methods to stop it. And then basically, people that pay for water conserve water, as I said earlier. It's related to the environment, but it's kind of not, so I made its own point. So how is this useful? Well, people that pay for water conserve water no matter how much they care. So one of the great methods to conserve more water is for the water bill to go up. So municipalities might need that in the future. That'll be happening here soon probably as well. I'm in the water industry. Knowledge and experience of drought results in water conservation. So another way to make people care about this more is to educate them. A lot of people in drought areas won't conserve water unless they know about the drought and know why they should conserve water. So education is a big part about it. And how much you care about the environment is the other factors I was talking about. So if you want to be a good politician for these things, what a government can do is educate the population about the circumstances of the municipality, like being in a drought and what that means and what you can do for it and why you should do it. Care for the environment. So making a population care about the environment is more likely to make your methods work. And money is a big factor in all this. So politicians want to focus on policies that educate and cause water prices to go up if they want to conserve water efficiently. That's pretty much the contribution this can be used for politicians. This data can be used for other things as well, but that's the most likely useful one that I see. And thank you for listening.